What's happening, my anodized friends? You are checking out the Anodized Chef. Thank you for that. We are doing our first ever request show. The boys from IKILLYA sent us a message asking us to show them how to make a good stroganoff. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. And we're also going to feature their new single, And Hell Followed With Him. You can check that out on YouTube right here. Check that out, it's phenomenal. But at any rate, those boys asked us to make this, so we're going to go through it step by step with you. It's going to be amazing. So the stroganoff that we make here in America today is completely different than the way it originally came from in Russia. What the original recipe was, it was a beef with sour cream, but it had crispy potatoes over the top, which is really nothing like we make it here now in America. The method, and even today in America, there's so many different ways that people can make this. I mean, all the way down to cream of mushroom soup in a pot with some beef. But let's go through. What I'll do is, as I list the ingredients, I'll talk a little bit about the different ways that you can make it. But for starters, let's talk about some of the main staple components here. We've got some diced red onion, and I just did probably about a half-inch to a quarter-inch to a half-inch dice on those. And you can substitute shallots. Some of the recipes that I found called for shallots. We also have some cremini mushrooms, and I chose those primarily because those are my favorite. I think they're the meatier baby portobello mushrooms, and they have a lot more flavor, but you can use any kind of mushroom you want. I would definitely recommend staying fresh, though. Don't get the mushrooms in a can. This is garbage. Then I've got some sour cream, and we'll add sour cream liberally. I think I have probably about a pint there, maybe a little bit more than a pint, but we'll add liberally and just go with what we need. I'll tell you the recipe. I have obviously some fresh minced garlic and some edge. I have some chopped fresh parsley that we're going to add to it, and then we're going to finish with a pinch of nutmeg, and that's going to bring a lot of the flavors together at the end. The two components that we have are beef, and I have some fettuccine noodles. Now you can use egg noodles, you can omit the noodles altogether and serve it over white rice if you want. There's a lot of different variations to that too. But for today's application, we're going to do it over fettuccine noodles. Now I wanted to talk a little bit about beef. There are so many different types of beef that you can use for this dish. One of the key factors is it's going to be a high heat, quick saute, and then it's going to be a reduction. You're going to turn the heat down and cook it nice and slow with that sour cream. Now, you don't want to cook it at a high heat with the sour cream because you don't want the cream to shatter. It'll get all kind of curdly on you and look really nasty. But the beef, you can use ground beef. I mean, an economical version of this would be ground beef. What we've chose today, what we chose today is proper English, is a bottom sirloin roast. It's actually sirloin, and I actually left one of the meat pieces whole here so you can kind of get a look at it. It's the very end, so it's more like a chuck steak. And what we did was it's got a nice marbling in it. So I wanted to use this because the marbling is where the fat is, and it's going to be more of a tender cut meat. So it's not super expensive. There are all different types of cuts that you can look for, and one of the things that I think is really great about meat is if you can find the underutilized cuts of meat. You go into the market, you try to buy steak tips for this recipe, you're going to spend $70 a pound. You know, try to find something that it's lean and it's tender. Now, you don't want to use something like a top round because that's going to take a lot of time to soften up. You want something that's a little bit tender. So if you use something like a tri-tip steak, ask the butcher behind the counter at the supermarket for tri-tip, or for a flat iron steak is another one. That's another underutilized cut. Those are two key underutilized cuts of meat that you can buy usually at a pretty good price. Now, some of those things have really started to take off and go mainstream. A lot of people out in the industry have really started to pick up on the fact that, hey, and they're driving that price point up a little bit. But if you ask, you can still get a pretty good deal on it. Now, flank steak is also expensive. It would be good for this, but it's a little pricey. So. But again, if you're really on a tight budget, this will work just as well with ground beef. In fact, as I grew up as a kid, we used to have it with ground beef and canned mushrooms. But anyway, this is going to be much, much better. All right, so that being said, let's get into the cooking technique and we'll get it rolling. The first thing I want to do is get my pan good and hot. We're going to saute the veggies up a little bit. I've got a little bit of olive oil here we're going to splash in. And one of the ingredients that I didn't mention, and the reason why I didn't mention it, and I put probably about 2 tablespoons of olive oil in there, is I've got some beef bouillon here. Beef base, I call it beef base in the kitchen. But what it is it's soup base. And it's the beef flavored soup base. And I like this better than a bouillon cube because I think it balances a little bit easier in the sauce. It breaks down a lot quicker. Obviously, because it's more of a paste and more of a rub than it is a block that's hard and then has to break down. But we have this on standby, just in case we're really lacking in flavor when it's all done. We wanted to try to kick it up a little bit. So that's the main reason why I got the bouillon on there, is just to kind of get us through the flavor. If we're missing that beef flavor profile. But judging by the look of that beef, I don't think we're going to, but it's there just in case. So we've got the oil in there. We're going to go ahead and add, and I'll do this first round just for one, so that way there we have. So I'm going to go with about a teaspoon of garlic in there. Let's see that baby saute up. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw probably about a quarter cup of those diced onions in there. Remember, you can substitute shallots. That's one of the original ingredients, the shallots. But a lot of people cheat and use red onion instead, which is perfectly fine. And then we're going to throw cremini mushrooms right in there. Get those brought up. One of the recipes that I looked at today said after the vegetables are sauteed, take them out and saute the beef separately. You can certainly do that, especially if you're overcrowding in the pan and you don't have enough room in the pan to get them really good and brown. And I'll see that once I added the mushrooms, the oil really got taken right in. So I'm going to add probably about another tablespoon of oil right to that pan, because the mushrooms are like sponges. They'll just suck everything up into the pan, which is another great reason why I love them. It'll bring all the flavor in. All right, so now I'm going to add. Let's go generous here. And I cut this into thin strips, as you can tell. I did probably about a ½ inch thick, thin strips of beef. And I'm a big fan of beef, so. Now this is done. We're going to just brown this up nice and good. Get all sides. And one of the things that I was talking to Bob about when we were going over recipe review during pre-production, we talked about, all right, so, let's compare notes, because I'm going to tell you, Bob makes some mean stroganoff, and I actually wanted to kind of mimic what he did, because I really enjoy his, and I just wanted to make sure that I was staying true to his technique. But I asked him about deglazing the pan. Now, that's something that we hadn't really discussed before, but I'm going to take our house wine, our house red, and I asked him, I said, would you have a problem if I took the red and added about a quarter cup of red wine to that, just to kind of deglaze the pan a little bit? And he said, no, I don't think that would change the color or texture too much, so we're going to do that, and we're going to bring out those bits off the bottom. And I think deglazing is a huge part of sauteing, so, because that's where a lot of flavor is, you want to get all that in there. So, now, granted, the sour cream may do a pretty good job of deglazing, but remember, you're also going to hit that on a very high heat pan, and that's kind of dangerous. So, all right, well, our beef looks pretty good. So now what we're going to do is we've added the wine, and the wine looks like it made its own stock. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to give this a little taste. You know what? We may not even need that bouillon. We're just going to give it a kiss of the edge, but we'll do that later. Let's add our sour cream first. I'm probably going to add looks like about 3/4 of a cup, I'd say. And let's just go ahead and move that around. Now, remember with the sour cream, you want to turn that heat down. So I automatically turn it right down to center, and it looks awesome. And it's also a little quieter, so you can maybe hear me a little better now. Now, I'm guessing that this is the time that Bob would normally add his bouillon if he needs it. So let's find out. You know what? I'm going to add just a little bit. And I think it's primarily just because it's here. And I added maybe just a 1/4 teaspoon, but that really should be done by taste. And be careful with the bouillon too, because it's very salty. And they say 1 teaspoon, read the contents of the package. It tells you how much 1 teaspoon nets you, and make sure you even go even less than that, because those things are loaded with salt. So be very, very careful. And we still have yet to add the edge, so that flavor's coming. So you don't want to go too crazy. It seems to be working out pretty good. Now let's see what this is all about. Much better, much better. And it's not too salty. So normally we'll let this simmer for probably about 5 or 10 minutes, let it kind of soften up the meat a little bit. Now, again, that's why it's important to find that tender cut of meat. And one of the tricks while this is simmering that we'll talk about is technique in cutting the meat. And I think I mentioned it before in prior episodes. I did it again. Prior episodes is you want cutting it against the grain. And I think I've shown that in, I think it was the lamb one, and there's a couple other ones too. But when you're cutting the meat, you want to picture a bundle of straws. And if you cut the bundle of straws down the length of the straw, it's going to be very grainy. And you think about that as a bite when you're eating meat. But if you take the straws and you turn them on their side and you cut through them, now you're looking at little pieces like this that will be a perfect match to be nice and tender, because you're actually breaking through the membranes of the meat and making it much more tender. So just remember that too when you're trimming the beef for this dish. Then you want to try to get that so it's against the grain and it'll be nice and delicious. So we're simmering this down beautifully. You want to make sure all your veggies are good and cooked. Your meat's nice and tender. It is. So the last item we're going to add before we get into the pasta is a little essence of nutmeg. I've got probably about maybe 1/4 teaspoon. I'm actually going to give just a pinch more. I can smell it. And I think that's really going to just add a real nice essence. And that, I'll tell you, that's going to be one of those secret ingredients that everybody's going to go, what's that flavor I'm tasting on the back end? But it adds a nice touch to the beef. Okay, so anyone who knows me and who's watched prior episodes of the Anodized Chef will know how I feel about pasta. Now we chose, again, it's egg noodles or rice can be options. We chose fettuccine because I like the wide fat noodles myself personally. But I wanted to take a moment and just kind of respect the pasta a little bit here. And when I cook pasta, I cook it to al dente, so it's not quite all the way cooked, it's still a little bit firm, but it's not raw. Because what we're going to do is we're going to add it to the sauce, and we're going to finish it in the sauce, and it'll be perfect by the time your guest or company or yourself eat it. So, so it's important. That's one important thing to mention. The second important thing to mention is when you cook it, not to rinse it. Now, I know that seems kind of weird because you're so used to rinsing it, but what happens when you rinse the pasta is it closes the pores on the pasta, and it won't allow the sauce to come in. Or when you add it to something, it has to force the pores back open again, and it's just not the same because by then the pasta's overcooked. So I don't rinse my pasta. I cook it to al dente, and I strain it, and I let it set, because see how sticky it is now? Now what's going to happen is it's going to grab onto that sauce and draw it all right in, and it's going to be an amazing taste, and that's a very important part of the process. So we're going to add this right into that. Nice, the sauce is perfect right now. So we're going to add it right in, and get that pasta to soak up that sauce. And you'll actually see a reduction in sauce almost immediately when that pasta grabs onto it. But it's going to be well worth it. And this is the stage of the game here where I want to add just another pinch of the edge right to this. And that pasta combined with that sauce, the edge is just going to enhance all of those flavors together. So now let's go ahead and dish out. I'm going to go ahead and take this pasta. We'll try to grab as much of the pasta first, put the pasta right on the bottom. And then we'll come around the sides, put all the love right on top, all the sexiness right on top. The beef, the mushrooms, the onions, it smells like crazy. Alright, so shut that down. Hit this with just a little bit of parsley around the outside. You, my friend, are a rock star. I give you beef stroganoff. Boys and IKILLYA, go knock them dead with that. So now we'll get into the wine. So for today's episode, Bob actually made a great selection with the 2007 Côtes du Rhône, which is it's a region of France that's right along the Rhône River, and the grapes that are grown there are primarily the Grenache grapes. One of the things that I noticed about this wine when we popped it and let it breathe is it's got a very, very strong berry flavor right up front. And Bob was right, it's like a cranberry, it's got a little bit of tartness to it. I personally thought it was a little flat in the middle, but Bob said it's loaded with flavor, we just couldn't really identify those flavors. But it's got a really strong peppery finish at the end. And one of the great things is the high acidity content really does kind of cut through that creaminess of the sour cream, which makes it a really good pairing for this. But that being said, just wanted to say thank you again for joining us in our madness, our magic, and our mayhem. We'll see you next time. I bring you.